Welcome to the Girl Scouts of Southwest Indiana's online delegate orientation. Our objective in this module is to familiarize volunteers with the role and responsibilities of a GSSI delegate or member. You may be unsure of the importance of your service as a delegate, but as a GSSI delegate to the annual meeting, you have a special role as an influencer of policy. It is important to note that policy is not the same as operations. Policy structure refers to the group of people who make overarching decisions to guide a corporation. The operational structure refers to how our day-to-day work is carried out and includes guidelines for paid staff and for volunteers, program delivery, volunteer support systems, and more. There are two distinct structures which have different roles. You may influence council policy in one of several roles, but you may also serve in an operational role, either directly with girls or indirectly by providing support to other adults. All of our roles exist to provide and enhance an exceptional leadership experience for girls. Let's see how all this fits together in your role as delegate, starting with how we make decisions. Even though you may think that parliamentary procedure sounds boring and no longer relevant, it is actually widely used and serves as a critical role in modern governments, businesses, school boards, nonprofit organizations, and more. There are many complicated terms, and we will use a few of them in this orientation. But the important thing to remember is that parliamentary procedure is a way to help large groups. While there are several different models, 95% of groups, including GSSI, use Robert's Rules of Order. This orientation is not a class in parliamentary procedure. If you are interested in learning more, there are many resources available online and at local libraries. If you would like specific guidance, contact the Council for recommendations. The purpose of having defined rules of conducting an official meeting is to help get through business in a timely way, assure legality, and ensure that all views can be heard and given the opportunity to be considered. Let's quickly review 4 basic concepts you will need to know for your role in GSSI. Bylaws comprise the highest body of rules of an organization. We will look at GSSI's bylaws shortly in some detail. Quorum is the number of voting members who must be present for business to be transacted legally. Agenda is simply the prescribed order of business. We will be reviewing the typical elements in the agenda for GSSI's annual meeting. Business is brought before an assembly by the motion of a member. Decisions are made by presenting motions. To ensure fairness in the decision-making process, there are specific rules everyone must follow in how motions are made, debated, and voted upon. As we just learned, the bylaws of any corporation is the legal document which describes the rules by which that entity will be guided. Most corporate bylaws will have a series of components called articles and typically include these basic topics. We will do a quick review of the bylaws in this module, but you are expected to read them on your own to become familiar with the details. The first article is always the legal name of the corporation. For example, in 2009, our delegates voted to amend our Article 1 to reflect the change from Girl Scouts of Raintree Council to our current name, Girl Scouts of Southwest Indiana. The second article is always the object or purpose of the organization. Our bylaws state that we are a 501c3 nonprofit formed to benefit girls in our jurisdiction in accordance with GSUSA's purpose of building girls of courage, confidence, and character who make the world a better place. We are ruled by the terms of our GSUSA charter and are bound to honor state and federal laws. The next article defines membership in GSSI. Being a member of GSUSA and participating with Girl Scouts in Southwest Indiana does not confer GSSI membership. Any adult or girl who accepts the Girl Scout promise in law and pays the annual membership dues is considered a Girl Scout and member of GSUSA. Membership in GSSI is much more exclusive, as defined in Article 3 of our bylaws. To qualify for GSSI membership, a person must be 14 years of age or older and registered with GSUSA through GSSI. Service units are the geographic divisions established by GSSI and can change as determined by the corporation. GSSI members include members of the Board of Directors and the Board Development Committee, as well as delegates elected by the service units. The number of delegates per service unit is based on the girl membership as of September 30th of the prior year, according to a formula established and administered by the Board of Directors. Delegates elected by service units serve a term of 1 year or until their successors are elected. Only GSSI members are eligible to vote at the annual meeting. As a member of GSSI, either elected by a service unit or as a member of the board or development committee, you have several set responsibilities. Members shall serve as a communication link between volunteers, board of directors, and staff. This communication can take many forms. The most direct link to the board is through the second vice chair. Members are also charged with electing the members to the Board of Directors, GSSI Board Development Committee, and delegates to the National Council of GSUSA. Occasionally, these bylaws or the Articles of Incorporation may need amending, and it is the GSSI members who will be expected to consider any possible changes. Members shall also take action requiring membership vote and perform other duties as outlined in these bylaws. Article 4 establishes the elected officers of GSSI as a chair, first, second, and third vice chairs, secretary, and treasurer. The CEO serves as an ex officio officer without vote. It also establishes term limits for the various officers. Section 4 notes that the CEO is appointed by the Board of Directors and holds office at its pleasure. Additional information in this article covers the duties of the officers and the slating process of officers and directors. The Board Development Committee is charged with presenting a single slate of nominees to the membership at the annual meeting. Section 7b explains how nominations may be made from the floor at the annual meeting, provided that the chair of the Board Development Committee has been notified in writing no less than 5 days prior to the beginning of the meeting. Article 5 deals with meetings. The regular annual meeting date and time are set by the Board of Directors. Notice of the time, place, agenda, and slate of nominees are shared with the members between 45 and 14 days before the meeting. Special meetings can also be called by the chair upon written request of 2/3 of the members of the Board of Directors or 25% of the members of GSSI. For a meeting to be considered valid, it must meet a minimum representation or quorum. Per our bylaws, 25% of the members of GSSI will constitute a quorum, provided that a majority of the service units have at least one elected delegate present at each meeting. Voting procedures allow for votes in uncontested elections. Articles 6 and 7 deal with the Board of Directors and committees. The Board of Directors is charged with governing the corporate business and affairs of GSSI. While they are accountable to the elected membership for governing the affairs of GSSI, they are ultimately answerable to all the girls and adults registered in GSSI. The board consists of at least 10 members, including the elected officers of GSSI, directors at large, and the board development chair. The number of directors at large is determined by the board. The board is required to meet at least 4 times a year, but typically meets more. The bylaws describe how GSSI's membership is structured and how the delegates are policy influencers, but the Board of Directors is the policy-making body of the Council. GSSI's policy structure is different than most other nonprofits in that our Board of Directors assumes the corporation liability, not the entire body of policy influencers. What this means for you as a delegate is that you cannot be sued for any decisions you make when acting in your role as a policy influencer. The final articles in our bylaws refer to the parliamentary authority outlines and how the bylaws can be changed. Any modifications to GSSI bylaws requires a two-thirds vote of the delegates present and voting at any meeting of GSSI, provided that the proposed amendment was included in the notice of the meeting. So, what actually happens at the annual meeting? In a typical year, the agenda will include these basic elements. As listed in the bylaws, delegates will receive a paper or electronic packet of information at least 2 weeks prior to the meeting. The packet will include the agenda for that year, along with other materials that you will need to review prior to the meeting. After an opening and welcome from the board chair, a credentials report will be given to determine if quorum has been established. In other words, stating that there are enough GSSI members present and enough service units represented, and that the meeting can officially proceed and items can be voted on. The first is to approve the minutes from the previous annual meeting. Those minutes will be included in the packet ahead of time. The treasurer's report is presented for discussion. The stewardship report is actually composed of 2 reports. A report from the chair of the board, which highlights activities and accomplishments of the standing committees, task groups, and board of directors. The second report is the operational report of the previous year. This is a comprehensive report on how GSSI is meeting the vision and mission of GSUSA. The goals cover broad categories such as membership, program, volunteerism, technology, communication, fund development, and organization and structure. Questions on either report can be addressed at that time in the agenda. The election portion of the meeting consists of the official presentation of the slate. The slate, which will also be in your packet, will have the list of candidates to be voted upon. It may contain nominees for the board of directors, directors at large, and board development committee, and every 3 years it will also contain delegates to the National Council. If any nominations were made from the floor, following the procedure in our bylaws as we discussed earlier, those will be presented at this time. In addition to the regular items presented each year, there may be other corporate business that comes before the delegate body, such as amending bylaws. The meeting is then officially adjourned, and your role as delegate to the annual meeting concludes. But remember that your responsibilities as a GSSI member continue until the service unit elects new. GSSI's strength comes from the cooperation between the policy and operational arms of the corporation. Delegates elected by the service units are the voice of the operational side and can influence the direction and policy of the council by serving as that vital communication link between the girls and volunteers and the board of directors. The second vice chair of the board serves as the principal liaison between the operations and the board. And there are many resources at your disposal. Delegates will be receiving a packet of information as we mentioned previously. You are expected to review all materials. You may also contact the council staff, especially the CEO, via email or by phone. You also have the opportunity to schedule a meeting with the CEO to discuss any questions you may have. And at any time during the year, you are encouraged to communicate with the board of directors through the second vice chair, who is your direct link to the board. Thank you for your time and dedication to Girl Scouts of Southwest Indiana. We look forward to seeing you at the annual meeting.